Joe Biden and Donald Trump have faced off at the first presidential debate ahead of November's elections. It was a heated showdown between the two oldest presidential candidates ever, with each man accusing the other of being unfit for office. Biden often stumbled in his answers and his voice was raspy, while Trump repeatedly ignored the moderator's questions and made false statements.
DW reporter William Glucroft joins us now for analysis. So did this debate matter to US voters, first of all?
Generally, debates are not the biggest thing that voters are looking at when determining their candidates, especially in recent election cycles, which have become more and more polarized, and people tend to make up their minds and not really be able to change them. That said, as we know, these elections are extremely close. They come down to not just swing states, but swing counties. So even losing a few thousand votes here and there because of the debate could be a massive change, could call it for the president, whoever the next candidate will be. Well, one fact that does remain is that Americans, poll after poll, are massively uninterested in either candidate. We're talking a lot about how Joe Biden is unfavorable among Americans, but Donald Trump is not well liked either. These are two candidates that nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people just don't want. And yet the way the U.S. system is set up, these are the candidates you're left with.
The big question then is, for the Democrats at least, what about a plan B for Biden?
Yeah, well, it's probably not going to be Kamala Harris because the White House has distanced themselves from Kamala Harris for months now. She's also not particularly favored among many American voters. But the Democrats have been in a kind of denial for months. Like what we're seeing today, the shock today, based on the performance in the debate, the report we just aired said, this is what many Americans have been saying for months. We already go back to 2020. There are these questions if Joe Biden was too old then to be running for president. And the excuse of a head cold, well, a president has to make some really difficult decisions with a cold or with anything, let alone stand on a stage for 90 minutes and debate issues, or at least, I don't know if we can call these issues of this debate, but at least trade insults.
But William, haven't they been trying to come up with a plan B for a long time? I mean, I would be.
Well, you should maybe go work for the Democratic Party. I mean, it's been very clear that Biden is going to be their guy. There's been lots of calls that Biden should not run a second term. Biden himself in 2020 essentially hinted or made implicit overtures to that point that he would not be a two-term president. Although I should say he never confirmed that, but that was kind of the idea, that there would be a bridge to something else. But of course, power does funny things to people, and they tend to want to hold on to it. The Democrats have a history of fielding weak candidates, but nonetheless what the establishment, the inner machinery of the party wants. We saw this with Al Gore. We saw this with John Kerry. We then saw them, essentially doing away with stronger candidates like Howard Dean in 2004, of course, Bernie Sanders twice in 2016 and 2020, and going with who from internally are seen as more establishment candidates against the will of what many American voters, including Democratic voters, actually want. So this really lands squarely on the Democratic Party. Donald Trump's weakness, or their weakness, is Donald Trump's strength.
But where would you say Trump comes out of this?
He's looking very strong. I mean, yes, full of lies, full of things that weren't true, and much. Biden also had falsehoods, but of course, it's unclear if they were intentional lies or just misspeaking. But nonetheless, on optics, as we were hearing in the report, optics versus facts, Donald Trump looked very strong, and he needed to show that he was fit to be president, at least in sound mind and body. And he did come off at least looking optically fit to fill the role. Now, again, as we were discussing at the very beginning of this, whether that really changed anybody's minds is another question. But it's a very perilous time right now, and a very unprecedented time to really consider pulling a candidate who's now been through the primary season before or going into the convention. So this is what we're really going to have to keep our eye on. What next for the Democrats? And Donald Trump, how does he sort of use this momentum to kind of launch himself into this latter half of the presidential campaign, of what's left of it anyway?
And we will be following that closely. Thank you very much, William Glucroft.